In the shadowy depths of a dark closet, an alien magician, Fred Alexander, King of the Earth and Emperor of the Universe, awakens, naked, confused, and definitely not dead. It was one day after a forgotten night at the pub. He found himself trapped by an unknown assailant intent on disposing of him. But death is merely an inconvenience for Fred, whose bizarre affliction grants him the ability to rise again.
I must have been really drunk to be like this.
He thought and wondered if he'd done anything stupid. Being naked, it would look a little odd to just stroll outside, but he must at least try, so try he did. Fred, being an enchanter, tried to leave using magic without opening the door, but he could not get through the door or walls, and they resisted all his efforts. Realizing someone had cast an entrapment spell on it, and it wasn't one of his own kind, it was more likely a human who had found a spell book. It was clumsy but effective. Fred realized this was a trap that he couldn't escape. Fred saw blood on the floor. It was his blood. This confused and scared him. Fred looked at himself. He was unharmed. He thought he must have died. And unlike the rest of his kind, his body healed itself after he died. It had returned him to life. Suddenly a man with a butcher's knife opened the door of the cupboard, expecting to see a corpse. In the room behind him was a table of tools to cut up the corpse and dispose of it. The man was looking at him and was confused and very angry.
You're not dead?
No.
The man stabbed Fred in the heart, and the bleeding Fred dropped to the ground, dead once more. The killer closed the door to let him bleed out as he washed his bloody hands and the knife. He then made a coffee and sat for a while. Later, the killer came back. Sure, his victim would have bled out and wouldn't make too much mess. He opened the door, looking at the floor to see a lot of blood and his victim's feet.
What?
The killer said, looking up.
I'm still here.
Fred said nervously.
What are you?
Not dead.
Fred said nervously.
I'll fix that.
The man said, killing Fred again by stabbing him in the guts, leaving him to die again, angrily slamming the door. He came back a while later with an axe. Talking to the door, he said,
If you're not dead, you'll wish you were.
The killer said to the door before he opened it, expecting to find his victim alive again. He looked inside and found Fred lying bled to death on the floor. So, with effort, the killer picked up the tall, slippery, bloody corpse out of the cupboard. He put him on the table and prepared to cut up the body. The killer raised and swung the axe over the neck of the corpse. It didn't hit the corpse's neck, it hit something else. The confused killer tried again, but it stopped again.
What's going on here?
The killer said, frustrated. The thing that stopped the axe appeared. It was made of metal and had a wooden handle. It was a scythe.
What?
The shocked killer said, seeing a stranger dressed in a black robe.
Are you here to take him?
No. Why did you kill him?
He was the leader of an alien hive.
Leader of what? Does that look like a queen to you?
The Reaper said, pointing at the corpse. The killer looked at the blood-stained body. It was obviously male.
No, he was a king and emperor to the hive.
Isn't that the same thing? An emperor and king?
Not in his case. They called him the emperor of the universe and the king of the earth.
Oh, so that's who he was he?
Yes, why are you protecting him?
The Reaper looked at the dead man.
Maybe I knew him in another life.
Who are you?
I'd rather not say. Perhaps I'm his bodyguard.
What use is a dead alien? Let me dispose of him.
No, I'd rather you didn't hack him up.
Misguided loyalty.
The Reaper disliked zealots like this killer, who he was tired of and knew he knew too much to live. But the Reaper could not do anything yet. If he removed his weapon, Fred would lose his head. They both knew they were in a stalemate. If one of them removed their weapon, the other would strike. They stood like that for an hour, chatting, neither flinching, waiting for the other to grow tired to no avail. 5 hours passed and they grew tired. They were hardly able to keep their weapon arms still. They grew shaky in the 6th hour. The killer grew drowsy and dropped his axe and fell to the floor. The robed man hit him on the head with the shaft of his scythe, knocking him unconscious. The Reaper walked over to the dead man, touched his chest, and was absorbed into the corpse, which promptly healed Fred, who came back to life. Fred sat up, disoriented, and saw the killer, knowing sadly he must die. No one could know about his afflictions of having a grim Reaper as a soul, and his dying and coming back to life would bring down his empire. He felt that a dead man or a living dead man should not be emperor. Fred slew his killer and dismembered him with the skill of a coroner, which he had been in a former life. He next disposed of the body and prayed that he would not get caught for his crimes, hoping he could just live his normal life again. He left the area and went home. Sometime later, outside the entrance to the theatre where Fred occasionally worked as a famous stage magician, a man walked up to him and asked,
Hello, are you Fred Alexander, the stage magician?
Fred smiled charmingly.
Yes, I am.
Fred answered, thinking that this man must be a fan. The man took some photos out of a bag and handed them to Fred.
Do you want me to sign them?
Look at them, Mr. Alexander.
Fred did and was horrified at what he saw. Are you all right, Dad? Asked his son Val, who was with him.
Yes, I'm fine.
Fred lied, putting on a smile and hiding the pictures. Fred invited the man to go on a private tour of the theatre. The man naturally agreed. Fred took him to his dressing room.
What are these pictures? They are AI generated, right? Where did you get them?
Not AI, I took them myself.
Said the man, observing Fred's reaction. He was like a rabbit in the headlights, a trapped animal.
You took them? Oh, I see. What do you want for them?
You must pay for them with blood.
Fred felt sick. He despised killers and killing.
Who am I meant to kill?
A magician.
A stage magician?
Asked Fred nervously.
No, one of the alien magicians.
It struck him like a ton of bricks. He was one of them, and he didn't want to kill any one of them.
Which magician?
Asked Fred, feeling scared as he knew them.
The king of the earth.
Fred thought he was joking.
Are you serious?
Yes, deadly serious.
Fred was now even more scared. He knew the king and knew he could not kill him. He knew the king couldn't die. He was the closest thing to an immortal there was or would ever be, but he couldn't tell the man this.
I will do as you ask,
said Fred, knowing he couldn't. The stranger took the photos and left. Later, that week at an intergalactic political summit, while the celestial emperor Sapphirus was mingling with politicians, his wife Anna observed he was distracted and looked as if he was looking for someone in the crowds of fans, friends, and political agents.
Anna, are you all right? You look worried.
I am, but Sapphirus is acting odd. He seems on edge and appears to be expecting something to happen. I'm sure something is bothering him. I asked him what was wrong, and he lied to me and said nothing was wrong, but he has never been able to lie to me.
I'll talk to him. Maybe he'll open up to me.
Thank you, you're precious, Blake.
Anna said, and Blake wandered off to talk to Fred. Blake walked up to Fred and slapped him on the back. Fred was startled and jumped. Spinning around, he glared at Blake.
Don't do that, boy.
For a moment, he thought it was the blackmailer. Blake asked him to follow him to a private area for a chat. Fred refused to be led anywhere as he feared the talk he knew must come. And he didn't want to tell Blake about the blackmailer.
Do I have to hypnotize you, Gramps? We need a powwow.
No.
Said Fred reluctantly, but they eventually went to a quiet place to talk.
Anna and I are worried about you. You are acting like you have problems,
said Blake. Fred looked nervous and ashamed, and his eyes were shifting and never still.
I'm fine,
said Fred, hiding behind a false smile.
There you go, lying again,
said Blake shortly.
I am not lying,
said Fred in a dramatic huff, knowing Blake was right. Fred had fear in his eyes. Blake knew him. He was very worried about something. Blake knew he was proud he had seldom asked for help. But this was a cry for help if ever he saw one, whether Fred knew it or not. Blake was determined to help him and find out what was bothering Fred, so Blake did all that he could do. He stalked Fred. Later, as Blake was following Fred, he saw Fred meet a man in the street. Fred seemed scared of this man, and he saw the man hand Fred a knife, which Fred accepted. The blackmailer left him, and Fred was standing looking down at the knife in his hand.
Who is the knife for, Fred?
Nobody.
Nobody? Then why do you need a weapon?
He wants me to kill someone.
Why?
He is blackmailing me. I was caught.
Doing what?
Disposing of a body.
Whose body? Who killed it?
I don't know. He kidnapped me and killed me and saw me come back to life a few times. He knew who I was. I had to kill him.
I understand, but who does he want you to kill?
The king of the earth.
You? Does he know who you are? Great, that's simple. You can do that. Person shaking head or looking skeptical in dark alley. Man disagreeing in dimly lit room. No.
How? I can't die, then say I killed myself.
You can, though. You just need to do this.
A puzzled Fred listened carefully, then nodded his head. A day later, on another street, Fred and the blackmailer met a masked alien superhero, the magician, called the King of the Earth, who was said to be a fan of Fred's. He had seen him and the blackmailer together and came over for a signature.
Okay, I'll give you a...
Now, Alexander,
Do I have to?
Do you have to what?
do you want me to tell him what I know?
Fred reluctantly pulled out the knife and the puzzled king looked at it.
Is this one of your tricks?
Yes.
Oh good, I like tricks.
Fred closed his eyes and stabbed the king. The king looked shocked and died.
Yes, S1. Is it done?
Can I have the photos?
The blackmailer handed over the photos to Fred.
Why don't you like the king?
I didn't like him, that's all I'll say.
Another magician appeared out of thin air next to them.
Dad, are you committing harikari? You know it won't kill you. If it did, I'd have done it myself.
Thanks, boy.
Fred, who was Blake's older self, and Blake were time travelers, the same one at different points in life.
What's going on? He is a murderer. I caught him disposing of a body. I saw him. He has the photos.
Lakelandite took the photos from the frightened Fred. Fred looked nervously at Lakelandite, who glared at his father. Fred looked afraid of his son's reaction. Then Lakelandite laughed and shook his hand.
Welcome to the family. I thought you were a black sheep, the only clean skin in the family.
He kept killing me. It was getting annoying, and he knew I couldn't die.
Lakelandite killed the puzzled blackmailer.
Here's one on me.
You psychopath.
Lakelandite wandered over and kicked the king.
Hey, come on, come back to life.
A grim reaper who was hiding came out of hiding, touched the body of the king, and went poof. The king got up.
Psychopath.
The king, who was Blake, Fred's younger self in disguise.
No, I will not kill him.
Snapped the necromancer at his master Fate, Argent, who had another man to kill for a rather vicious murder no one but Fate knew of.
I can't kill him.
You have to. That's your job, killing people for me.
I know, but it's not my job to kill him.
You kill whoever I say you kill.
It's pointless killing him. I would have done it 1,000 times over already if I could have.
Is there something I don't know about him?
Nothing.
Then he's going to pay for his crime.
Okay.
The necromancer stomped off to find the man he had to kill. He was at an intergalactic political summit.
Hello, boy. You look like you're having a bad day.
I am.
What happened?
I've been told to kill a man.
Oh, that again. What's wrong with that? You were always doing it.
The man won't die.
Why?
You tell me, Dad, it's you.
Oh, you really are having a bad day.
Fate wants you dead for killing the man you murdered.
He would. What do you want me to do?
Run, or there will be a second coming here.
Not good for politics, the emperor dying. Bye-bye, and thanks for the warning.
Fred wandered off to find his wife. He found her with his younger self, Blake. Fred and Blake were time travelers, actually one man, a single time traveler, posing as two men, the grandson and the grandfather. Fred was the grandfather, Blake the grandson. She was technically the wife of both of them, being one man. She, to the world, was the younger man's wife.
Hi, Anna, my love. Hello there, Blake. I was looking for you, too.
Hi, Fred.
Hi, honey.
I will be going away for a while. Why? I can't go into it now. I just had to tell you.
And seeing Fate coming with his assassin, Fred disappeared into thin air, teleporting away.
Hello, Anna.
Hello, Argent Lakelandite.
Where is Fred? I saw him come in here. He's gone.
Why are you looking for him?
Lakelandite is going to kill him, Anna. He's a vicious killer.
Anna looked worried. No, he isn't, Anna said.
He murdered a man and hacked him up, said Argent.
He is not capable of doing that, said the shocked Anna, looking at Blake.
He'd have to have a very good reason, said Blake.
Anna was shocked. She had not known about the murder. Lakelandite and Blake knew Fred had to kill him to save Fred's life, and the man knew too much to live, but they couldn't tell Argent, because Argent didn't know Blake was Fred.
Blake hugged Anna. Anna, he's your husband's grandfather. He's nothing to you, said Argent, puzzled.
Anna was upset because he was one of her husbands. Lakelandite walked up to Argent.
Leave her alone, said Lakelandite, who knew Fred was her husband. Dad, take Mum away from here.
Blake led Fred's distraught pregnant wife away and tried to explain why Fred had murdered the man. She took it badly. Lakelandite tore strips off Argent for what he had done to Anna, who was seen as Fred's best friend. Elsewhere, Fred was hiding at home, scared and sad, not sure what to do or where to go or how Anna would take his being hunted as a killer by their son. It was like a Mack truck had crashed into him. He was haunted with all sorts of negative thought. He hoped Blake and Lakelandite could explain his reasons for acting out of character. He resolved to wait in his room for his son, where no one would see him die. Fred stood in the dark, peering out the window of his bedroom, wondering how he could die without looking like he wanted to die for his crime. He was so depressed, he lay on his bed in the fetal position. He had never wanted to die and stay dead more in his entire life. Lakelandite arrived to kill him and saw him asleep on the bed Fred had cried himself to sleep. Lakelandite looked at him and couldn't mock him as he usually would. He pitied him. He left and told Argent he would never hurt a hair on the head of Fred, and if he tried to kill him, he would kill Argent himself. Argent was angry, but not stupid, and rescinded the order. Lakelandite would not kill him, not out of loyalty, but pity. When he had looked at Fred, his heart had broken. Fred looked like a broken man. He was broken because death had come for him only to bring him life again. The grim reaper soul within him that would never let him die forever had touched him and brought him back to life again and again. He was as much a slave of his soul as Lakelandite was Argent's slave. Fred had cried because he knew he couldn't die and stay dead. It saved his life from Lakelandite this time, and now he slept on, unaware of the dilemma he had caused. It was midnight, there was a purple tinge in the sky, and the streetlights were harsh beams of white in the air. Fred had finished working for the day, and Fred Alexander was feeling depressed and miserable as he wandered the streets of Melbourne City.
I went down past the river, deep in thought and regret. I was trying to forget my troubles. My wife had left me and wouldn't speak to me.
He wished he could die. He was so depressed he felt death was the only answer to his problems. This was selfish, not thinking of the ones who would have to pick up the pieces if he died. Fred looked at a nearby rooftop, and being nimble and fit, he proceeded to climb to the roof. The edge beckoned to him.
I dreamed of death, taking me to the mental peace of death. I did not fear suicide. I've seen death before as a former coroner. It was death, actually murder, which brought me here. I am a murderer. I regretted my crime and would not have done it if I had another option.
He took a step off the edge and felt a rush of air, then a sudden all-encompassing pain, then nothing. He was dead. He thought and felt nothing. The Grim Reaper walked into the street, no doubt to take the soul of the dead man, the only witness who had just left a nearby pub with a bottle in a brown paper bag, seeing what remained of Fred. The amazed drinker couldn't believe his eyes. He shook his head and dropped the bottle in a nearby bin, thinking he was drunk enough, and wandered off to try and forget what he had just seen. The Reaper looked in disgust at this man and continued on his way to the dead and mangled body. The Reaper grumbled as he touched the mess. Amazingly, when he did, he disappeared, and the dead mess sprang back to life in the form of Fred.
Damn.
Disappearing into thin air was all the remaining gore and evidence of the suicide. The next day came, and Fred was busy talking to alien delegates at the Intergalactic Political Summit.
How are you?
Alive, so I must be all right.
But this was not what he wanted. He would have preferred the opposite.
You couldn't die if you tried.
Fred knew it. He'd often tried to kill himself and couldn't. This made him feel sad and ashamed that there could be no retribution for his sins.
Hello, Temp. Nice to see you in the real world.
I would rather not be here, but I was needed.
Tempus, who had a splitting headache in the real world, preferred living out of time in the pocket universe. Fred looked awkward. He had seen Tempus when he came back to life.
You really need help.
Thanks, boy. I didn't know that.
I had an idea.
What is it?
Is it time-related?
Yes.
Then what's your idea?
Tempus smirked and concentrated on his time-shifting ability. He made a few hand gestures for effect, and suddenly it was a week earlier. Fred lay murdered and naked, ready to be hacked up and disposed of by the man who had killed him.
What use is a dead alien? Let me dispose of him.
No, I'd rather you didn't hack him up.
Misguided loyalty.
No.
The Reaper disliked zealots like this killer. He knew too much to live, but the Reaper could not do anything yet. If he removed his weapon, a scythe, Fred would lose his head to the killer's axe, which it was stopping. They were in a stalemate. If one of them removed their weapon, the other would strike. The cupboard door where Fred was trapped to die before opened, startling them.
I'm not even meant to be here.
Lakelandite snapped, walking up to the killer, who waved his axe at him. Lakelandite hit the axe away with his sword called Doom and slew the man.
You bloodthirsty psychopath.
You are welcome.
Lakelandite disintegrated the body of his victim to remove the need to get rid of the evidence that caused all of Fred's troubles. Fred was no longer depressed, and all was as it had been before, so Lakelandite was now happy.
And all was as it had been before.
So Lakelandite was now happy.